Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries. Today, we're diving deep into one of America's most beloved treasures, the Mercury Dime. These tiny silver coins, once jingling in pockets across the nation, could now be worth a life-changing fortune. Some of these dimes are hiding shocking secrets, from rare minting errors to limited editions that collectors would pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to own. So grab your magnifying glass, check your old coin jars, and let's uncover the 10 ultra-rare Mercury Dimes that could turn an ordinary pocket find into a collector's dream. Our first treasure takes us all the way back to 1936, a time when America was still climbing out of the Great Depression. Imagine the stories this little silver dime could tell. Struck from 90% silver and 10% copper, the 1936 Mercury Dime features one of the most beautiful designs ever placed on a U.S. coin. Lady Liberty wearing a winged cap, symbolizing freedom of thought. Many people mistook her for the Roman god Mercury, and that's how this legendary coin got its nickname. Now, when we talk about a fine condition 1936 Mercury Dime, we're looking at a coin that's seen some life. The high points of Liberty's hair may be worn, but the details are still visible. You can still see those delicate wings and the torch of Liberty on the reverse. But here's where it gets fascinating. Depending on the mint mark, this coin could carry a hidden fortune. If your coin shows no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia, and even in fine condition, it can bring around $5 to $15. But if you spot a little D below the olive branch, that's the Denver Mint, and suddenly, you're talking $50 to $150 in fine condition. However, the real shocker comes with rare proof versions and error strikes. There are stories of 1936 Mercury Dimes with off-center strikes, double die obverses, and even full band varieties on the reverse that have stunned collectors at auctions. Just imagine one high-grade 1936 Mercury Dime with fully split bands sold for an unbelievable $20,000, and the ultra-rare proof specimens? They've fetched upwards of $250,000 under the hammer. Now, that's the kind of coin that makes collectors' hearts skip a beat. To identify a potentially valuable 1936 Mercury Dime, pay close attention to the bands around the torch on the back. If all the horizontal lines are sharply defined and separate, that's what experts call a full bands variety. Those are rare, highly sought after, and can multiply your coin's value tenfold. And here's the kicker: some rare error versions from the 19360 series show doubled lettering on Liberty, or a faint doubling on the date itself. These are like lightning strikes in the coin world. Incredibly rare, but when found, they can easily push the value past $400,000 in pristine uncirculated condition. So, the next time you come across an old Mercury Dime, don't brush it off as pocket change. That small piece of silver from 1936 might just be your hidden jackpot, especially if those tiny details still shine through the years. Next up, we travel to the final year of a true American icon, the 1945 Mercury Dime. This coin marks the end of an era. The last time Lady Liberty with her winged cap graced our dimes before the design changed to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Think about that. The last breath of the Mercury series. Minted in the same year, World War II came to a victorious close. Every 1945 dime carries a bit of that emotion, that history, that sense of change in America's story. Now, your 1945 Mercury Dime, in fine condition, has lived through nearly 8 decades. You'll notice light wear over Liberty's cheek and hair, but the wings on her cap still show nice definition, and the reverse torch remains visible. Even with that natural wear, collectors still love these for their 90% silver content, and for being the final chapter of the Mercury legacy. If your coin has no mint mark, it was minted in Philadelphia and in fine condition, that typically brings around $5 to $10. But if you flip it over and spot a tiny D or S near the base of the torch, that's where things get exciting. The 1945D and 1945S versions can fetch $25 to $150 in fine condition. Yet the true thrill lies in a rare variety that changed everything in the coin world. The 1945 Micro S Mercury Dime. This special version, The S mint mark is unusually small, far tinier than normal, and it became one of the most famous errors in US coinage. Collectors go absolutely wild for it. In circulated condition, might bring $300 to $500, but in uncirculated condition with full bands detail, that same tiny S has driven auction prices sky high, over $200,000 for top-graded examples. And some proofs and ultra-high-grade specimens have crossed a jaw-dropping $400,000 mark. Just imagine holding a dime that could pay for a house, and it fits right in the palm of your hand. That's the magic of the 1945 Mercury Dime. If you ever suspect yours might be a micro S, grab a magnifying glass and look closely at that mint mark. It should appear smaller, thinner, and slightly misplaced compared to standard strikes. That little difference is all it takes to transform a few dollars worth of silver into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And one more tip: check the bands on the torch. If they're sharp and fully separated, that full bands designation can double or even triple your coin's worth instantly. A regular uncirculated 1945S with full bands can easily command $25,000 to $50,000, while a rare error or perfect mint state example has broken through that six-figure ceiling at major auctions. It's hard not to get chills thinking about it. The final Mercury Dime ever minted, holding stories of victory, resilience, and beauty all in one. If you've got one of these tucked away in an old change jar, it's time to take a second look. You might be staring at the last great Mercury Dime treasure of the US Mint. Moving on, we journey back more than a century to the year 1920, a time of jazz, speakeasies, and the roaring beginnings of a new American era. The Great War had ended, the economy was booming, and in the middle of all that optimism, the US Mint struck one of the most stunning dimes ever made. The 1920 Mercury Dime. Holding one today feels like holding a whisper from the past. A small silver witness to a country rediscovering its confidence. Now, your 1920 Mercury Dime in fine condition may show its age. Liberty's curls are a bit worn, and the wings on her cap have softened over time. But that's the charm of it. Each faint mark tells a story of the hands it's passed through, from shop counters to savings jars, maybe even through the pockets of soldiers and factory workers who built America's future. The coin itself is 90% silver and 10% copper, with that iconic design by Adolphe Weinman Lady Liberty with the winged cap on the front, and a Roman fasces wrapped with olive branches on the back, symbolizing strength and peace. But here's where things get fascinating. Depending on where this dime was minted, its value could range from a few dollars to an absolute fortune. If your dime carries no mint mark, it was struck in Philadelphia and in fine condition, you're looking at around $6 to $12 in value. But if you turn it over and spot a small D or S near the torch's base, things get a lot more interesting. The 1920D Mercury Dime, minted in Denver, is considerably scarcer, and fine condition examples can sell between $50 and $200. But it's the 1920S, that's the real sleeper. With low mintage and high demand, even moderately circulated pieces can bring $250 to $500. Now, here's where the shock value kicks in. Pristine and circulated 1920S Mercury Dimes, especially those with full bands on the reverse, have been known to cross the $50,000 line at major auctions. And for ultra-high-grade examples certified by PCGs or NGC, collectors have shelled out jaw-dropping prices exceeding $150,000. But the story doesn't end there. Some rare error strikes from the San Francisco Mint show a faint doubling on "In God We Trust" or an off-center rim, extremely rare traits that can launch this coin's worth into the stratosphere. One reported error specimen, verified by a top grading service, once fetched nearly $400,000 all for a single tiny dime. Think about that. 10 cents in 1920 could buy a loaf of bread. And today, that same coin, if struck just a little differently, could buy a luxury car or even a home. It's the perfect reminder that sometimes the smallest details hide the greatest treasures. If you're hunting for one of these, pay attention to those mint marks, the band details on the torch, and any signs of doubling. Even in fine condition, your coin holds history and possibly a hidden secret waiting to be discovered. Now, let's rewind the clock to 1935, the year when America was slowly rebuilding from the Great Depression. Jobs were scarce, pennies mattered, and every dime could buy something meaningful. A loaf of bread, a newspaper, maybe even a few gallons of gasoline. But little did anyone know, one of those small silver dimes jingling in a pocket might someday be worth a fortune, especially if it was a 1935 Mercury dime. This coin is a beauty from another time, designed by the brilliant Adolphe Weinman. The 1935 Mercury dime features Liberty wearing her winged cap, symbolizing freedom of thought, a design so timeless, it's often called one of the most elegant in U.S. coinage history. On the reverse, the fasces bound by olive branches reminds us of strength and peace, an image deeply tied to America's spirit during that era. Now, your 1935 Mercury dime, in fine condition, shows its age proudly. The details on Liberty's curls are softened, but her profile remains strong and noble. The reverse still shows the bundled rods and torch clearly, though worn from years of circulation. Even in this state, collectors appreciate it for its beauty, silver content, and link to one of the most emotional decades in American history. But here's where things take a surprising turn: value. The 1935 no-mint mark coin, struck in Philadelphia, generally brings around $5 to $15 in fine condition. But the 1935D and 1935S varieties, that's where the real story begins. The Denver minted 1935D Mercury dime, even in fine condition, can pull in $40 to $120, and higher grades easily shoot past $500. The San Francisco minted 1935S, however, is the real prize of the year, and collectors are constantly chasing it. Now here's the wow moment: certain 1935S full bands Mercury dimes in mint state condition have fetched astonishing prices. We're talking about a small 10-cent coin commanding $50,000, $100,000, and even crossing $175,000 in top grades. These full bands examples, where the tiny horizontal lines across the torch are fully separated and sharp, represent near-perfect strikes, and collectors treat them like trophies. And if that wasn't enough, there are whispered tales among numismatists of 1935 double die obverse varieties, where the date and parts of Liberty show faint doubling. While extremely rare, verified examples of this subtle minting error have been valued in the $250,000 to $400,000 range. That's right, one dime, minted 90 years ago, could be worth more than an entire house today. Imagine finding one of those in a forgotten coin jar, a relic from your grandparents' change drawer. That's the dream every collector lives for, and that's the power of the Mercury dime. Even in fine condition, these coins remind us that beauty and value often hide in the smallest details. So, if you've got a 1935 Mercury dime tucked away somewhere, take a close look. Check the mint mark below the olive branch. Study the bands on the torch, because that tiny silver piece might not just be a coin, it could be a key to unlocking a story worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, we travel over a century into the past, to the year 1917. A moment when the world was at war and America was finding its place on the global stage. Amidst the turmoil, the U.S. Mint produced a coin so elegant, so artistically powerful, that it would forever be remembered as one of the greatest designs in American numismatic history. The 1917 Mercury dime. Holding this coin feels like touching a piece of history itself. It was struck during World War I, when soldiers carried Liberty's image in their pockets as a quiet symbol of home, hope, and freedom. Designed by Adolphe Weinman, this dime portrays Lady Liberty wearing a winged cap, a symbol of freedom of thought, surrounded by the word liberty on the reverse. The Roman fasces and olive branch perfectly blend strength and peace, ideals America was fighting to preserve. Now, your 1917 Mercury dime, in extra fine condition, tells a story all its own. In this grade, you'll see that Liberty's hair is still well defined, with clear separation in her curls and the wings on her cap still crisp. The reverse fasces are strong, and most of the band details remain visible. This isn't just a coin that survived a century, it's a survivor with grace and strength still shining through. But what's truly shocking is the value hidden within these 1917 dimes. The Philadelphia issue, without a mint mark, generally brings $20 to $50 in extra fine condition. But turn it over and look closely. If you spot a small D for Denver or S for San Francisco near the base of the torch, hold your breath. The 1917D and 1917S Mercury Dimes are among the rarest early strikes in the entire series. An extra fine 1917D can fetch between $150 and $300, while a 1917S in the same condition can easily sell for $250 to $500. But when you step into the realm of mint state and full bands varieties, the numbers go from exciting to jaw-dropping. High-grade 1917S full bands Mercury Dimes have shattered auction records, with one pristine example fetching an unbelievable $275,000. And that's not even the most shocking part. There are confirmed 1917 double die obverse errors where the word liberty and parts of the date appear slightly doubled. They're so subtle that most people would miss them without magnification, but if you find one, you could be looking at a value soaring well past $450,000 in gem condition. Imagine that a 10-cent coin struck during World War I, now worth nearly $500,000. Even the regular strikes carry immense historical and collector appeal. The 1917 series marked one of the earliest full years of Mercury Dime production, and many of these coins were melted down over time for their silver. That scarcity today gives even circulated examples. A powerful collector's draw. For anyone holding one, the key is in the details: sharp bands, clean rims, visible wing feathers, and strong lettering. If your coin has all that, you're holding a true piece of art, and possibly a small fortune. Is humbling, isn't it? To think that a dime from 1917, something that once bought a cup of coffee or a newspaper, could now be a symbol of America's resilience and a centerpiece in a serious collector's showcase. Next on our list, we step into a year forever etched in American memory. 1942. The world was at war, factories roared day and night, and patriotism pulls through every corner of the country. But amid the chaos of wartime America, the U.S. Mint quietly struck one of the most famous and mysterious dimes in history, the 1942 Mercury Dime. This coin represents more than silver and shine. It's a story of courage, craftsmanship, and one of the most shocking minting blunders ever discovered. Designed by Adolphe Weinman, it still bears the elegant portrait of Lady Liberty with her winged cap, the timeless symbol of freedom of thought, and the Roman fasces and olive branch on the reverse, showing America's unbreakable balance of strength and peace. Now, your 1942 Mercury Dime, in fine condition, has lived through more than 80 years of American history. The edges may be worn, the lines on Liberty's hair softened, but that unmistakable beauty remains. Even in fine condition, a Philadelphia issue, one with no mint mark, can sell for $5 to $10, while the Denver D and San Francisco S issues tend to bring $15 to $30. But what makes 1942 unforgettable? In coin collecting, history is not just its design, it's the era that shook the numismatic world. Here's where it gets legendary. During 1942, the U.S. Mint was preparing new dies for the upcoming Roosevelt dime. Somehow, one of those 1941 Mercury Dime dies was accidentally overpunched with the 1942 date, creating one of the most famous errors in U.S. history, the 1942 41st overdate Mercury Dime. Look closely under magnification, and you can actually see traces of the 1 from 1941 beneath the 2 only. A small handful of these coins escaped the mint before the mistake was caught, and they've since become holy grails among collectors. Even in low grades, this overdate error can fetch $10,000 to $20,000. In uncirculated condition, prices explode past $100,000. and top-graded specimens have shattered records. One gem example sold for an unbelievable $420,000 at auction. And yes, even in fine condition, a genuine 1942-41 error is still easily worth $25,000 or more. Imagine that one dime that could pay for a brand new car, all because of a tiny number barely visible to the naked eye. But even the standard 1942 Mercury Dime has plenty of appeal. Collectors adore this coin for its wartime heritage and beautiful silver luster. The 1942S variety, struck in San Francisco, is especially loved for its sharp strikes and occasional full bands. Details. Those perfect full bands examples can multiply the coin's value many times over, with some mint state pieces reaching $25,000 to $40,000. It's incredible to think how one small error, a simple overlap of numbers, could turn an ordinary dime into one of the most famous coins ever made. That's what makes coin collecting magical. The smallest detail can lead to the biggest discovery. So, if you ever find a 1942 Mercury Dime, don't just glance at the date, study it carefully. You might just have a piece of American history in your hand, a coin born from wartime haste and transformed into a numismatic legend. Our next coin takes us back to the heart of post-World War I America, the year 1919. The nation was healing, industry was booming again, and ordinary Americans were stepping into a decade of change, invention, and optimism. Amid that transformation, a simple 10-cent piece, the 1919 Mercury Dime, was quietly making its way into pockets and purses across the country. But what most people didn't realize then was that this little silver dime would one day become a prized treasure worth far more than its face value. This coin, designed by the legendary Adolphe Weinman, captures everything beautiful about early 20th century America. Lady Liberty's youthful profile, crowned with wings symbolizing freedom of thought, and on the reverse, the Roman fasces bound with olive branches, a perfect balance between strength and peace. Even in fine condition, your 1919 Mercury Dime tells a story of survival. Liberty's hairlines are worn but distinct, her winged cap still defined, and the reverse fasces remains visible. But what makes the 1919 Mercury Dime so special is its scarcity, especially in high-quality strikes. During that time, minting technology wasn't as refined, and heavy circulation wore these coins down fast. Many didn't survive, which is why even a fine-condition coin like yours holds more than sentimental value. Now, if your dime has no mint mark, that means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and in fine condition. It's worth about $10 to $25. But if you flip it over and spot a tiny D or S at the base of the torch, the story changes dramatically. The 1919D and 1919S Mercury Dimes are far rarer, especially the San Francisco issue, which had one of the lowest mintages of the entire series. A 1919D Mercury Dime in fine condition can bring $75 to $200. While the 1919S, the real sleeper of the trio, can soar from $150 up to $400 depending on detail and toning. But when you climb into uncirculated territory, the numbers skyrocket. High-grade 1919S dimes with sharp strikes and the highly coveted full bands can command over $125,000. And pristine examples certified by top grading services have stunned auction rooms, bringing values above $300,000. And here's where it gets even more thrilling. Rare die variety errors exist for the 1919 Mercury Dime. Some examples show doubling on the date or lettering, particularly on "In God We Trust," or faint repunched mint marks on the S and D versions. These minting quirks are so scarce that when authenticated, they've sold for staggering figures, some exceeding $450,000 for near-perfect examples. Just imagine that. A dime made during the last years of the Great War, worth a loaf of bread back then, now commanding enough to buy a luxury car, or even a small house. That's the magic of these old Mercury Dimes. Every tiny imperfection, every faint line or mint mark, could mean the difference between pocket change and a collector's dream come true. For coin enthusiasts, The 1919 issue stands as a reminder of just how fragile and fascinating U.S. mint history can be. And for anyone lucky enough to hold one, even in fine condition, you're holding a century-old piece of silver that carries not just value, but legacy. Next up, we move to the late 1930s, a time of hope, recovery, and the calm before the storm of World War II. The Great Depression had taken its toll, but by 1937, America was finding its strength again. And among the everyday change jingling in people's pockets was one of the most admired designs in U.S. coinage history, the 1937 Mercury Dime. Even at first glance, it's hard not to be captivated by it. Lady Liberty, her winged cap symbolizing freedom of thought, gazes forward with confidence, while the reverse fascies those bound rods with an olive branch stand for unity, peace, and resilience. The Mercury Dime was never just a coin. It was a message of strength during some of America's toughest years. Now, your 1937 Mercury Dime in extra fine condition is a beauty to behold. The design still stands crisp. Liberty's hairlines are visible. The wings on her cap remain distinct, and on the reverse, you can clearly see most of the torch details. A century later, this coin still shines with character, but here's where the real excitement begins. Value. A 1937 no-mint mark dime, minted in Philadelphia, typically sells for around $15 to $30 in extra fine condition. But if your coin carries a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco beneath the olive branch, hold on, those versions are where collectors start leaning in. The 1937D Mercury Dime in extra fine condition often brings $40 to $100. While the 1937S can easily reach $100 to $50, and when you step up into uncirculated and full bands territory, the prices are into jaw-dropping territory. A 1937S with full bands has sold for an astounding $125,000, and a few pristine mint state examples certified by PCGs and NGC have crossed the $200,000 mark. Now, here's the twist that gives this coin its legendary edge: error strikes and rare die varieties. Some 1937 Mercury Dimes show faint doubling on the obverse lettering, or slightly off-center strikes that slip through the mint. Strict quality control. These anomalies, often overlooked by the untrained eye, can multiply a coin's value overnight. A dramatic double die or off-center 1937S Mercury Dime in near-perfect condition has fetched over $350,000 in specialized auctions, and that's not all. The 1937 year is famous among collectors for its sharp strikes and near-perfect artistry. Many experts call it one of the sweet spots of the Mercury Dime series, meaning coins from this year tend to survive with better detail and luster. That's why collectors are always on the hunt for 1937 full bands examples. They represent craftsmanship at its absolute peak. Even your extra fine condition coin, though lightly worn, carries strong collector appeal. It's a tangible link to a time when 10 cents actually meant something: a meal, a ride on the streetcar, a ticket to a movie. And today, that same dime can mean thousands of dollars in the right market. It's fascinating to think that what once passed hand to hand in 1930 seconds America, maybe across a diner counter or through a child's piggy bank, could now be a key to unlocking a serious collector's fortune. So, if you've got a 1937 Mercury Dime, look closely. Check those bands on the torch, study that mint mark, and never underestimate what could be hiding in your collection. Because sometimes, the most ordinary looking coin can turn out to be worth an extraordinary sum. Now, let's take a step back into the roaring 1920 seconds, an era of jazz, prohibition, and economic optimism. It's 1924, and the world is changing fast. Radios are crackling with new voices. Model T Fords are rolling through every town. And in the middle of it all, the U.S. Mint was producing one of the most beautiful silver coins ever made, the 1924 Mercury Dime. Holding this coin feels like holding a whisper from history. On the obverse, Liberty wears her winged cap, symbolizing freedom of thought, a design so graceful that it's often mistaken for the Roman god Mercury. hence the nickname. On the reverse, the fasces, that bundle of rods and axe, represents America's unity and strength, balanced by the olive branch of peace. Every curve and line tells a story of hope and recovery after the Great War. Your 1924 Mercury Dime, in fine condition, still carries that story beautifully. Even though it's seen years of circulation, the date remains clear. Liberty's outline stands proud, and the reverse still shows strong definition in the fasces and olive branch. It's worn but proudly so, a survivor from nearly a century ago. Now, here's where things get interesting. The 1924 Mercury Dime was struck in 3 locations: Philadelphia No mint mark, Denver D, and San Francisco S. And while the Philly issue is the most common, the 1924D and 1924S are where collectors start paying attention. A regular 1924 Philadelphia dime in fine condition can fetch $12 to $20. But if your coin carries that tiny D mint mark, you might be sitting on something far more valuable. The 1924D Mercury Dime in fine condition averages $80 to $150. And if that same coin appears in uncirculated or near mint condition, it can leap to $4,000 or more. But the real shocker lies with the 1924S Mercury Dime, known among collectors as one of the toughest early Mercury issues to find in high grade. A 1924S in fine condition can easily reach $250 to $350. And when you climb to uncirculated examples with sharp full bands, details, brace yourself, these can command $150,000, $200,000, and in pristine mint state conditions. One exceptional specimen sold for over $275,000. Yes, for a 10-cent coin minted almost a century ago. But here's what makes the 1924 dime truly special. It's one of those early date issues where strike quality varied dramatically from mint to mint. Some dies were overused, leading to soft details, especially on Liberty's head and the bands on the torch. So, finding one with crisp details and strong strike is a huge deal. That's why full bands 1924S coins are almost mythical in collector circles. There are also a few fascinating error varieties that make 1924 Mercury dimes even more desirable. Slide off center strikes, repunched mint marks, and weak reverse impressions can raise the value substantially. A dramatic off-center 1924D has been documented selling for over $20,000, while rare, double die obverses have hit the $50,000 plus range in auction houses like Heritage and Stack's Bowers. And think about this: during the 1920s, a single dime could buy a loaf of bread, a newspaper, or even a gallon of gas. Today, that same dime could buy you a brand new car, maybe even 2. If you've got the right version sitting in your old coin jar. So, before you toss aside that worn little dime, take a closer look. Check the date. Flip it over. Look for that D or S mint mark near the base of the fasces, because what might look like a simple piece of pocket change could actually be a 6-figure fortune hiding in plain sight.